Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Konkol. I serve as Dean of Hendricks Chapel and Professor of Practice here at Syracuse University, and welcome to Matters That Matter. This is an online conversation series where we amplify intentional conversation about spirituality, values, motivation, community. We invite our guests to share about the choices they've made, some of the difficulties they've encountered, and some of the commitments that they have solidified. Today, our special guest is Zolani Mahola. Zolani, for many in South Africa and beyond, you are known through the success of the highly acclaimed Pan-African band Freshlyground, especially after the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Yet in addition to being known as the one who sings, in recent years, there is more awareness of all that you are: singer, storyteller, and so much more. And of course, your single from December of 2020 is titled Remember Who You Are. So Zolani, I want to start with a very simple but yet very important question. Who are you?
Oh my goodness.
A nice, easy one to start off with.
I was so composed and I was so ready before you came at me. Sure. The answers that come to me are in evolution, in becoming, I think. I sit in my meditation in the mornings and I kind of like, ponder this question and I ponder whether I'm like waiting to become myself fully, like I'm like waiting for the moment where I'm fully going to become. Then I also question myself, maybe this, whatever this is, this moment is actually it's actually who I am. So I am. I am, Brian. That's the answer.
It's I'm wondering about, every conversation happens within a context, and of course the context of any conversation ultimately impacts the content. And I think it's important for us to think about, as I'm speaking here from Syracuse and you of course speaking from South Africa, it's thinking about all that is surrounding you right now, from COVID-19 to economics to climate to various forms of personal and public unrest. I'm wondering, Zolani, how are you discerning your particular role as someone who seeks change in the midst of this context that you find yourself?
Yeah, I must say, something that I'm really working with in my life at the moment is this idea of authority, and power. I think for a lot of my life, I've kind of felt disempowered. I felt like I didn't have the authority, the seniority to speak. And I think, and I know that as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, geez, I mean, we are the people that we keep waiting for, to make the big moves, to reach across, to speak our truth. And so a lot of my practice at the moment is really coming to embody that. And at times I'm really ahead at the game, the proverbial game. And other times, I'm still kind of reverting back to that, she's 6-year-old girl, or yeah.
I'm wondering about, we talk about change and often about social change, but one of the things I've always appreciated about you in your music, in your all of your work, is the sense about the change within yourself. You've written and spoken about not wanting to be known merely as a performer, but you want to write and sing and dance for yourself. You've written about sitting in silence with yourself. And I think this is a quote I read from one of your texts. It says, to light fires only I feel the warmth of, and whisper to myself secrets only I will ever hear. Can you share more about this inner journey, and perhaps what you're
I
comfortable
can.
sharing about your own journey, and perhaps
Absolutely.
some thoughts for others?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, um, the moment that I really like kind of came alive for myself and for others as yeah, a kind of a very like kind of seminal moment for me was when I was a young teen and discovered that I had this talent for being on the stage and this talent for speaking, debating or acting or things like that, and then singing. And I just really got, in a way, got off on on people's response, and so I made people's response. I made people's response my why. I think, for a very long time. And so that imprint is still in me that makes it challenging at times for me to just be that light, and just be that it's enough, for me to be that for myself. So even just to play for myself, like play, draw or color in or it's sometimes a stretch for me even now. I've just turned 40. It's even now. And that's an interesting thing for me, I find, when one has kids, seeing in my children that uncolored thing, that thing that doesn't have it doesn't have that particular shade that I got in childhood. They don't have that particular blueprint. So it's so wonderful to actually kind of piggyback on their joy and their experience of life. And yeah, I must say I I do that often. It's a big help for me.
I hear you saying is this there's this part of your of life where so much of work, of performance, if you will, and one's sense of affirmation is dependent upon
100%.
the approval of others. So it's external.
Absolutely.
And what I
That
feel like I'm
external
hearing you
gaze,
saying
yes.
is this from the external to the internal, and how can you be comfortable in your own sense of self, regardless of that external affirmation.
Absolutely, Brian. And it's all absolutely linked to something that became true for me when I was a child. And that truth was that um, I wasn't enough. That is a truth that I internalized at a very young age. And and that meant many things. But one of the patterns that it really solidified for me in my life was that I needed something from the outside coming in. So whether that be the approval of others, whether that be entertainment, escape in the form of entertainment, in the form of food, in the form of alcohol, in the form of XYZ. That's been an imprint for me. And that really happened for me when I was that 6-year-old girl and my mother died, and my dad, he was there, but he wasn't quite able to hold me and to hold us, as a family emotionally, because he himself was broken,
Yeah.
to quote Leonard Cohen. Um, but yeah, so then I just, my ingenious 6-year-old mind came up with a plan. So actually, like, I find it fascinating now, and I did a play about this, and I'm sure we'll speak about it, and I called it The One Who Sings, where I reenacted parts of myself. I enacted my own story, and I became that 6-year-old girl, and I became all parts of myself between then and 38 years of age, and also the shadow characters and the people that had influenced me in that time. And it was such a profound experience because I really got to honor as I say, the genius of that little girl who made a plan, made a plan for my survival. So deep honoring.
I've often thought, as I watch my own small children, I'm not sure if we ever stop being 6 years old. We just end up with having larger clothes and but those questions of acceptance and community and belonging that you mentioned before around where do I belong, who am I becoming, and
yes,
what do I wish to bestow upon the world. And it's wonderful to hear you reflect upon that becoming, belonging, and bestowing through the lens of a child. And I'm not sure if we ever stop becoming 6 years old.
Yeah, and I mean, there is, there is the honoring of the inner child for a reason, otherwise you might not realize from which part of yourself you're acting, maybe it's not appropriate right now to be acting as the 6-year-old child.
Well, this is something that you speak about often. And one of the things that I appreciate so much about your work is you speak often about the sanctity of childhood. And I love that phrase, the sanctity of childhood. And you mentioned it here a moment ago about these blueprints that we receive as young people and how they impact our lives. And you've done a great job about helping children to see themselves as active agents of change, even in the midst of childhood. Could you share more, Zolani, about this important work? Because I think it's pretty spectacular and it'd be great to share with our audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is a favorite topic of mine. So when I left my band, Freshlyground, that I was with for 17 years, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I really reached out and in to really just figure out some real concretes about the mark that I wanted to leave in the world and what I feel is important and what I want to get behind. I knew that I wanted to tell stories. I didn't know what I wanted to tell stories about. And through various experiences, which I won't go into right now, but very deep and meaningful experiences, I came to the conclusion that I wanted my storytelling work has two branches of it. Is that really loud for you?
This is what we do when we're on Zoom, right? This is what we do.
It's like a truck just passing by, sounding really loud.
No worries.
That there were these two branches to my storytelling and to my work. One was elevating our connection to nature and our human connection to nature, and also elevating the sanctity of the time of childhood. And the sanctity of childhood was really as a result of really digging deep into my own story, Brian, and really looking at the messaging that I'd gotten during childhood about who I am. When I was writing my play, I recollected a character like my stepmother, who would tell me things like, you think you're so much better, you think you're all that kind of thing, and like, don't be too clever, like, don't be, just keep yourself small. You know what I mean? Because actually you are small. And that was the information that I got, and that a lot of kids received here in South Africa also. I mean, I know all over the world, people receive this, but also particularly because people who look like me, like my stepmother's generation and her mother's generation, they were told that they were small. You know what I mean? That was the message that they got. You're black. Geez, you're a black woman. You're at the absolute bottom of the totem pole. And so there are generations of us, of these children, really being told, the same messaging. And it's like, when I speak to people my age and I speak to people her generation, that is the messaging. That's what they got. And so when I began to unpick that, I realized, sure, it is so important how it's so important, the messaging that we give children about themselves. And it's so important to honor that time of childhood. Now, here in South Africa, sure, it's yeah, I almost want to cry at the level that because of our trauma and because of our history, so many of our children are not held sacred, and so much of their time of growing up is not held sacred. So for me, I want to create works and align myself with organizations that that go towards, really having children themselves see themselves, as you say, as agents, agents in their own lives, like that they have worth, and that they have agency, and also that we create a culture of seeing how important this time is for later on down the line, for our communities, for our nations, for our world. Yeah.
Yeah. I love your use of the word sacred is so important. It's this, I think of sacred as worthy of awe and respect, and
Mm-hmm.
and for us to see our children in such ways. So appreciate this work. As you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
it's these voices that come at our children become the voice that they hear in their heads for many years, and for you
Absolutely.
to bring attention to that is really special. So thank you for that important work. And what I hear you saying is a sense of peace. I think about thinking about your name, and thinking about my understanding of the Kosa here is this sense of Zolani means to be at peace, to be calm. And
Absolutely.
I where Zolani, where do you find peace in the midst of such unpeaceful times? When, thinking about peace in the sense of external, but also the peace within ourselves. How do
Mm.
you find peace in your life?
I feel like I can't have that external piece without doing that internal work. Yeah, I feel that the more that I connect with myself, whether it be in meditation, or whether I'm, communing with my ancestry, which is a new thing that has come back into my life. And I'd actually love to say a bit more about this, Brian, because it's actually very fascinating.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so
please
it,
do.
it really, yeah, so super interesting thing happened to me. Um, Last year, 2020, the beginning of 2020, I met Craig Foster, who created the Sea Change project with Ross Frillink, and they produced the movie My Octopus Teacher, right? So and Craig was the guy with the octopus. So I hadn't heard of Craig. I hadn't heard of Sea Change, but the year before in December, he had contacted me. He said, Yo-Yo Ma's coming to South Africa, and we want to create a song using elements from the sea. So using instruments from the sea, that they would create these instruments using kelp, dried up kelp, using abalone shells, using all sorts of things from the sea to create a song. And Yo-Yo Ma would collaborate on the song, and was I interested? And I was like, yeah, yeah, okay, it sounds great. And so I met Craig that January, and he took me for my first ever scuba dive, I guess, snorkel.
Yeah.
And I was so amazed at this world just here. I mean, I live really close to the beach, as my sign says. Um, but this underwater world, I was so touched that I started then diving with Craig, and I've since became an ambassador for the Sea Change Project. And through the course of my connection with the water and my connection with the sea, I started developing this real, very deep connection with myself, which was already very, very profound. But earlier this year, I started connecting with the underwater life, with the kelp, particularly with the kelp, as my ancestry.
Hmm.
And that just blew my mind, because I've grown up, when I was a child, my dad was very much a traditionalist. And so I have that information of really, honoring the ancestors. But I kind of left that behind, in my urban landscape. But something happened with, I got plugged in completely to that honoring of their ancestors, and the conversing with the ancestors through this experience, and it's been mind blowing.
Hmm. Mm.
Yeah,
Mm. I
mind
love
blowing.
what you're saying about this sense of what I think about, my own experiences in South Africa and this sense of Ubuntu. And oftentimes when we think about Ubuntu, we think simply around the human community. But of
Yeah,
course, as you're talking here, it's about recognizing I am, we are, perhaps beyond just anthropology, around our connection with the created earth and our ecosystem, which I know is important to you. And so in some ways, what I feel like I hear you saying is this sense of Ubuntu is far beyond the human experience, our relationship with the earth, and we
yes,
are we are not simply caretakers of the earth, but the earth is caretakers of us. And it sounds
absolutely,
like
absolutely,
you're connecting in that
absolutely.
way.
That there is no separation. This idea of Ubuntu is, I'm me because of you. And as you say, absolutely, it's not just interpersonal, it is interspecies. It's, in fact, Desmond Tutu actually once said that, and I just, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and I think it's so spot on. There is no separation. The minute we try to separate, yeah, there's problems, disconnection. Yeah.
Oh, I so appreciate you sharing that. And I wanted to ask a bit, a couple of other things that you've been working on is, you know, some of the things you mentioned before was around your own experience as a young person and empowerment. And I know that you have been involved in the Give Her a Crown campaign and this sense of
Yeah.
female empowerment and changing the narrative for women through storytelling. Could you
Yes.
share more about that experience and what it meant to you, uh,
Yes,
and
I
perhaps some
can.
thoughts for us?
Sure. So the Give Her a Crown campaign was started by a collective called the Change Collective, and basically they are purpose-driven um, pioneers, creatives, and they offered me the ambassadorship of this campaign, Give Her a Crown. Um, it is a direct response to a gender-based abuse,
Yeah,
which is very rife here in South Africa and, listen, all over the world.
yeah,
Um, and I really wanted to look, and they asked me to write a song, and remember who you are as a result of that campaign. So I wanted to look at it in the lens of, like, not just, saying men, stop abusing women, or like women, rise up. More of a lens of, like, let's start at the very beginning. Let's start where we get that messaging. Give her a crown, give him a crown from when they're a child. Do you know what I mean? Make them feel that they are as unique and as special as the mountains, as the waters, as the stars. I think, so many of the root causes of problems is that people, they are wounded. They're carrying these, like, very deep wounds from childhood. So for me, this was the angle that I came in with, as part of my ambassadorship of Give Her a Crown. The chorus is, give her a crown and watch them sing, make her Lord and make her King. Give him a crown and watch them sing, make him Queen and bring him peace. So, like, can we honor the child, so that we don't have such brokenness further on down the line. So the Give Her a Crown campaign, so they used, the greater campaign was that they got various artists of different disciplines to create actual crowns that were auctioned off, and there was created, went right back to childhood again, actually. So there was created a syllabus, in life orientation classes that children have in schools to, they were kind of more, they're gender, what would you say? They're like kind of like how to treat each other across gender lines.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of gender sensitivity.
Yeah.
So the feedback loop was, it went back to childhood, it went back to education.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that we got a little bit of getting to hear you sing in this conversation. I was too shy to ask. So
oh, really?
I'm glad we got that. So thank you. That was important. I love, I think that so often what I'm hearing is we go through the life in this if then that if I do this, then people will accept me. If I do this, then people will love me. And I'm hearing your sense of reversal around, because you are already loved just the way you are, therefore you're free. It's changing this if then formula into a because therefore formula, and this sense that you are beloved and you are special and you're sacred, therefore you are free to be, and to share that through song and through various initiatives. That's going back to what you said earlier about this question of am I enough?
Yes.
That's really powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah, you put it beautifully as well. Thanks.
I'm wondering about, you carry a lot of responsibility. You're a public figure. There's a lot going on in your life. I'm curious, whatever you're comfortable sharing, how do you care for your own heart, mind, and soul? Because you've got a lot coming at you. You've got people for requests for Zoom conversations like me, and so you've got a lot coming at you. How do you care for yourself? Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
No, I'm very comfortable sharing. My meditation practice is very important. Meditation, my connecting now, very much the connection to ancestry is it's become a very important part of my bag, part of my healing bag. And then nature, and then getting into nature, so whether it's diving, or going up and down these beautiful mountains of ours, or our forests. I find such peace and such information, actually. And yeah, I mean, if we listen, if we listen, we get so much. So that really helps big time in terms of balancing. And then also, actually, Brian, what I've done this year is that I've taken a break. I've largely taken a sabbatical, even though I've been working on music and on creations and stuff, and supporting my various projects that I support. By and large, I've taken a break, and that's also been because so I ended with Freshlyground at the end of 2019, and my 2020 was a wonderful year of exploration. I really gave myself a blank check in terms of, creating whatever work I wanted to create, and doing all sorts of different genres and etc. But I realized that I hadn't taken a breath after these nearly 20 years of trains, planes, buses, full on radical schedule. So taking time actually has really, really helped.
I love this sense of, you mentioned Yo-Yo Ma a few minutes ago, and I believe it was Yo-Yo Ma who talked about music is what happens between the notes. And in some ways you're saying that life is often what happens between the words, and that silence does tend to speak to us. And that sense of Sabbath keeping, I think that for everyone who's listening, I know that in our work here at Hendricks Chapel, that sense of allowing silence to speak to you, and recognizing the power of the pause, whether it's a daily Sabbath practice or whether it's those that keep Sabbath, whatever that looks like. I think that that's a powerful message around reminding ourselves that we're human beings and not human doings. And
Uh-huh.
that's I so appreciate that in this time where, as you were talking before, where so oftentimes we evaluate our self-worth on how busy we are.
Oh yes. Oh, that's been a great one of mine. One of my escape. Yeah, it's also a way of escaping oneself, running away from oneself. For me at least, it certainly that busyness helped me.
Well, I've taken up a significant amount of your time today. I have
Oh
one more.
no, already?
I have one more question that I want to ask you. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot over these, especially these last 18 months. I'm increasingly convinced that crisis gives birth to clarity, and that there's a revelation that happens in the midst of desperation. And we've talked about all that's going on in our world, from COVID-19 and far beyond, social, personal, public unrest. I'm wondering, Zolani, as we close off, what if this program is called Matters That Matter? I suppose I want to ask what matters have mattered more to you over these last 18 months? What has become clearer for you in recent times? And perhaps to speak to our students here at Syracuse University, what are you hoping can be more clear for them?
I love it. For me personally, clarity itself has been something that I've been working with over these last 18 months. The idea of the clarity of my intention, the clarity of my dreaming, of my hopes for myself and for my world, the clarity of what I put into my body, the clarity of mind. Clarity has been a massive, massive umbrella. For me, clarity of voice. I recently had an operation on my voice, and not just my physical voice, but clarity of the authority of my voice. Like, what is it that I really want to speak for? What is it that I really want to stand behind? What do I want to put my voice, behind? What is the clarity of that? So for your students, I would say no. There is a sense of knowing that I would love for you to have. Know that you are the only one of you that there is. The only one. There is no other one of you on this entire planet of all of these many, many people. And know that you have something very uniquely special to offer this world and to offer yourself. And know also that it's your world and it's your time. So take your time and enjoy it, and have fun creating. I don't think we came here to struggle. I don't believe we came here to struggle. I think there's so much discovery, there's so much curiosity, there's such an amazing, amazing world outside and within us, and explore it. Have fun. Yeah.
Well, Zolani, I started off by asking, who are you? And I want to end by saying, I'm thankful for all that you are. And thank you for making time for this conversation. You know how much I personally appreciate you and all that you bring. Thank you for all that you have offered us here to Syracuse University and far beyond. So again, on behalf of all of us here at Syracuse, thank you for your time.
What a pleasure. And might I just say back to you, thank you for the space. Thank you for creating the space to have these conversations about matters that matter. You are a light bearer yourself, so we are appreciative of you. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you. And to all who've joined us today, thank you so much for making the time. We wish you a wonderful day. Wish you the fullness of health, hope, and healing. Thank you. All the best.